It started with something so small, he almost did not register it. He was in his kitchen, late afternoon, the sun coming through the window at the low angle it takes in autumn, casting his shadow long and sharp across the tiled floor. He reached for his coffee cup, and in the half-second before his hand arrived at the handle, the shadow of his hand was already there. Not simultaneously, not at the same moment his hand moved. Before, a fraction of a second. The shadow of his arm extending, the shadow of his fingers closing around the shadow of the cup, and then his actual hand following, arriving where the shadow had already been. He stopped. He set the cup down. He raised his hand slowly and watched the floor. His shadow followed in perfect sync. He raised it again, faster. The shadow matched it exactly. He stood there for several minutes, raising and lowering his hand, turning it, extending his fingers, and the shadow did everything he did, when he did it, not a fraction early and not a fraction late. He told himself he had imagined it. The light, at that angle, at that time of day, could do strange things. The brain was not a reliable instrument for measuring fractions of seconds. He was tired. He went to bed. In the morning, he noticed it again. He was brushing his teeth at the bathroom mirror, the overhead light throwing his shadow onto the wall behind him. He watched it in his peripheral vision, not directly, just present at the edge of his awareness the way shadows always are. And he turned his head to the right, and the shadow turned a beat before he did. Not the light. He checked the light. A single fixed overhead fixture with no flicker, no movement, no variable that could account for a shadow shifting ahead of the body casting it. He started paying attention. What he documented over the following 2 weeks was precise and consistent and completely without explanation. The shadow moved first, always by the same margin, close enough to pass unnoticed if you were not watching for it, significant enough to be unmistakable once you were. Every gesture, every movement, every turn of the head and shift of the body, the shadow performed it slightly ahead of him, as if it knew what he was about to do before the signal had traveled from his brain to his body, as if it was not reacting to him at all, as if he was reacting to it. He looked for explanations the way rational people look for explanations when something is wrong with the physical world, methodically, with a genuine commitment to finding the mundane answer that would allow him to stop thinking about it. He read about light refraction, about the way certain neurological conditions affect the perception of sequential events, causing the brain to register things in the wrong order, about optical illusions that create the impression of movement where none exists. None of it held, because the shadow was not an impression and it was not a perception. He had filmed it. His phone, propped against the kitchen wall, capturing him making a series of deliberate movements in front of the window light. He played the footage back, frame by frame, on his laptop and sat with the results for a long time. The shadow moved first, on camera, in footage that could be slowed and examined and measured. The shadow of his arm began extending toward the coffee cup 3 frames before his actual arm moved. At 24 frames per second, 3 frames was an eighth of a second, a tiny margin, but a real one. Documented, reproducible. Wrong. He slept badly. He started avoiding rooms with strong single light sources. He began preferring flat gray daylight that cast no shadow at all, or darkness that hid whatever his shadow was doing when he was not watching it. He felt, with a growing certainty he could not rationalize away, that the awareness was mutual, that whatever was producing the movement ahead of him knew that he had noticed, and that the knowing had changed something in the dynamic between them. That it was no longer simply moving first. It was deciding whether to let him catch up. The mythology of shadows that behave independently of their owners is ancient and widespread in a way that suggests it is touching something genuinely deep in human experience. In many West African spiritual traditions, the shadow is understood as a component of the soul, not a metaphor for the soul, but an actual part of it, the part that interacts with the physical world on behalf of the deeper self. To lose your shadow is to lose a piece of your spiritual integrity. To have your shadow behave in ways your body does not is to have something interfering with the connection between what you are and how you move through the world. In Slavic folklore, a shadow that detaches or moves independently is an omen. Specifically, an omen that the person casting it is marked, not necessarily for death, though that interpretation exists, marked for attention. Noticed by something that operates in the spaces between the physical and the unseen. Something that has identified you and is, in its own way, beginning to follow. Peter Pan loses his shadow, and it is played as whimsy in the story you were told as a child. But the original anxiety underneath that image is not whimsical at all. The shadow is the part of you that exists in the world whether you intend it to or not. It goes where you go, does what you do, and exists in every space you occupy. And if it begins to act with any independence from you at all, the question that follows is not mechanical. It is, what is it now? He found his answer 3 weeks later, standing in his hallway. A single lamp at the far end, his shadow stretching long behind him. He was not moving, just watching, waiting. His shadow raised its hand. He had not moved. He watched it hold the position, fingers extended, arm vertical, the posture of someone signaling, not mimicking him, not anticipating him, moving on its own, in a body of darkness on a lit wall, while he stood completely still. He turned off the lamp, stood in the dark for a long time. When he turned it back on, his shadow was normal, still, doing nothing he was not doing. But it was smaller than it should have been, as if whatever had been using his shape had taken a piece of it when it left. The shadow still moves first sometimes, but now he understands it is not ahead of him. It is showing him what is ahead. And lately the movements it makes are ones he does not recognize, ones he has not made yet, ones he is not certain he wants to make. If this one stayed with you, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell us which story you want next. Until then, pay attention to your shadow and notice which one of you moves first.